Hello and welcome to PM Express. My name is Nanan Sakwao. Today I'm discussing a very different topic. You see, once upon a time, there were people in our communities who had the ability to see better, to hear better, probably even understand better. And we would go to them to say, I am embarking on this journey. Should I do it today or tomorrow? They would look into the future for you and say, yep, you're okay to travel, or no, don't travel today, let a week go by. And we happily lived like that. And then came upon us was Christianity and Islam. And those people now were called witches or wizards, and therefore were not accepted in society anymore. You'll be burned at the stake if you could see or understand better. It was a gift that they had. And it was called witchcraft. My argument is that it's a craft. Carpentry is a craft. Masonry is a craft. Artwork is a craft. If indeed there are people amongst us who are blessed to see or understand better, and that is their craft, should we encourage it? Or should we banish them into what are called today witch camps, confine them there until they confess their sins? Indeed, who and how is it proving that Amma is a witch or Kufi is a wizard, and that this crime or that death or that disease was caused by him or her, and therefore should be confined into the witchcraft? However, up north, there are a couple of witchcraft camps where predominantly women are kept under really, really appalling circumstances. It makes you wonder, aren't the people who put them there rather the witches to, put people under such torment? Could be their mothers or their aunties, or are the people there indeed witches? Well, with me in the studio to discuss this, and they might know better than I do, is Isaac Annan, who is a Deputy Director for Shirag, and Sheikh Arimiyao Shaibu, an Islamic scholar, and also the host of Islamic Insight on Metro TV. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
But before we go ahead, I think there's an insert that the director will play for us, and then we'll take it for, okay, it's not ready yet, so we'll go about it. But today we're going to look at craft. I am advocating that we don't have enough witches and that we need more. Some will say they do bad things and good things. Sheikh, I'll start with you. You see, before Christianity and Islam came, you could happily live in your community and be blessed to see or blessed to hear or have the eye for a leaf that could, cure somebody's disease. And we'll all lived happily ever after. But today, it is not acceptable. And should we go back to the old days, or should we try and come back to these days where, being a witch or wizard is no more accepted?
Thank you very much. I like the context or the angle from which you started us, the way we lived. People had eyes to see things, and they were helping people were going to travel. This can be fit very well into the philosophy of Professor Mbiti. I mean, in describing African religiosity, and he says that the African is incurably religious. In other words, for the African, the understanding experience of every phenomena must be done within the context of religion. Stretch it further, spirituality. Yeah. If the African gets out and he's walking and he stumbles, it must have a meaning. Mm-hmm. If he meets two birds and one flies to the right, the other one flies to the left, it has a meaning, and somebody must explain. If somebody dies, for example, in African context, for example, there is a ripe age at which one can die. If you die pre that age, it is not seen as a proper death. In other words, there must be some force that has caused that, and so therefore somebody must assume, who has the eye, must assume the responsibility to establish why it's happening so. So there is a belief in a certain mystical dimension of life, which is not perceptible to our sensory perception, and yet also it lives with us. And like it is with all religions, religious traditions, faith traditions. For example, Islam also has a belief in the spiritual dimensions of life, the mystical dimensions of life, like it is also in Christianity. Yes, and so people who are gifted or who have obtained the ability to be able to see beyond sensory perception are able to give interpretation of this. But to come to this main subject, witchcraft, it appears that in our understanding, it is a certain spiritual force or power that is so malevolent as to affect somebody negatively. And that is why there is the abhorrence from the African. You see, the African or every religious group wants something constructive, something that adds to life, not something that destroys. That is why in Africa, if you are seen to be evil, then the whole society is against you. For example, look at the way we treat somebody who steals, which there's a human rights abuse there, but just look at the way we abhor it. If you're a murderer, look at the way we deal with it. So the murder, whether it's spiritual or physical, all attracts certain response, from society. So the malevolent, spirit, as it possesses somebody and also using that person as an agent to affect somebody negatively, destroy, kill, subject that person to pain, paralyze him, neutralize him, that he's unable to survive meaningfully and do things for himself. That is a negative kind of spirituality, which every religious person would not want. And it's related to our belief of the satanic forces of life. Because for our beliefs, Satan destroys. It affects us in order to take away from us that right to live a dignified and glorious life as God has given it to us, subject us to that kind of pain. So there must be a way by which we dispossess the person, exorcise, bring back relief, restore to the person so affected by that malevolent spirit, to a life of purity, a life of meaningful survival. And so that is the way we say. And in Islam, it is seen as such. For example, there's a text in the Quran which asks us to seek refuge with God against the negative forces in creation, for example. And sometimes also even the spirit of the break of the day and those who blow ritualistically on certain notes in order to affect people and to also seek refuge from the envious one whenever he envies. In other words, even the envious person, spews out certain negative energies that affects, because the intention that he carries from within him, destroys another person. And such a person needs a certain kind of relief. And then those of us who see that also need a certain kind of cover, a spiritual cover that encases us and protects us, fortifies us against the force that comes from such evil person. That's why for us, witchcraft is just such a negative thing.
Sound philosophical.
Very philosophical.
Yeah.
Isaac, so now all this accepted.
Yeah.
Let's say it's all accepted.
Yeah.
Now, how do I prove that he did it? So I'm going to confine him or her into this yard or this camp. But we are discussing this issue in 2013. Is it not too far gone in history to even discuss this on a TV show? But then it's a reality.
Yeah, if I make, thanks, Sheikh, for the religious, education and the philosophical dimension that is put this discussion to, the context. So we now agree that these are things that exist or phenomena that exist in our society and almost every society. But as the philosophers also say, religion sets in when science fails, when science has no answers to our problems. So the issue about witchcraft has to do with belief systems and what people believe to drive them as a society, a community. And they are more or less faith-based. And based on that tradition of belief, it becomes very difficult to even rationalize situations. So if somebody says that this is what I believe in, And over the years, like you're saying, the community, 20th century, we've embraced all these ideals of modernity, civility, but we are still hemming with this tradition. The question to ask is whether tradition or belief systems, promote societal growth or advancement, because our constitution accepts that people's culture, beliefs remain sacrosanct. Our way of life, the way we do things, and that has been guaranteed everywhere on the planet. The question to ask, like you're saying, whose culture and how progressive is that culture? So when you proclaim somebody to possess evil spirit or a witch, what is the basis for arriving at that position? And that is a question that we have to pose in the 20th century. So you find myself in a community, so wow, you are a witch. What is the basis? And how should society treat somebody? Like Sheikh is saying, anything negative is ascribed to certain beliefs, especially when it comes to the spiritual realms. But when it comes to maybe religion and faith, that person who is deemed to have to possess witchcraft or evil powers is maybe the faith that the person also has. Granted that is even true. But these are things that we have to reconcile. The question now is, who sees beyond the spiritual realms to proclaim, and what should happen when we see that somebody is deemed to have possessed or to have possession of, powers beyond what is natural. But we, coming from a human right dimension, we are saying that you have every right to have your belief, but you have no right to label somebody. Because as Sheikh is saying, it has very negative connotation. So if you say, I'm a witch, look at the reaction that comes with it. And from a human right angle, any activity that goes to detract from the worth and dignity of a person should be abhorred. And that is why it is not the best to say that this is a witch, and for that matter, that person should be ostracized or banished from the community. As we sit around this table, we have had a certain level of enlightenment. And it is expected that that enlightenment gives us an insight into how society operates. So if today, after living this, with all our education and enlightenment, we still believe that there's a supernatural power which will make you get sick or will more or less retard your progress, then that becomes a problem in our society. But mind you, we all have our, what we call, maybe I won't call them totems. When we go to our communities, we have our chiefs, we have our tradition. It is even believed that if you don't come home to perform certain rites and you are even in the city, you may not progress. These are all, things which linger on our minds. But the question is that how liberated are we in the 20th century to face a society? And that is why I'm saying that now going constitutionalism and democracy, civility, modernity, how do we reconcile, like the question you pose, this phenomenon, the delicate balance, balancing our culture, our tradition and beliefs with modernity, constitutionalism, and the rule of law? We come to how people tagged to be witches or having supernatural power should be treated in society. That becomes another angle that we can discuss.
Can we channel these negative forces and probably train them to become positive? Going through my thing, and I was Googling witches meet up near London in England. Tuesday, 6th August is a meeting. Thursday, August 22nd, they have a meeting. August 27th, there's a meeting. And I think today, July 24th, the witches in the UK have a meeting. And they've happily published it to say, if you feel you're a witch, come to the meeting.
Yes.
And so what? Go there and have your meeting and go home.
No, before Sheikh comes, because of the way we perceive a witch or somebody deemed to be a witch, like Sheikh said, we see that as a negative reflection or a negative attribute. But if you possess powers or supernatural, powers that can change situations for the better, why shouldn't? And that society has been able to more or less regulate this kind of arrangement for their good, or for the progress of that society. But in our context, when you are seen to be having that kind of attribute, it becomes an issue. That's I keep harping on that. So maybe they have liberated themselves and seen that witches. When we were young, they say, oh, as for the white man's witchcraft, he use it for produce or manufacture planes. You see, so ours is the opposite. So,
Sheikh, is it so, before you go to channeling their negative to positive, is it surprising that mostly they are poor, mostly elderly women? I mean, you tend to find this category of women, being labeled as witches. Very rarely would you find a nice woman driving his big Mercedes Jeep and say, "Oh yeah, that's a witch. Let me go and put her in a camp."
Yeah, I mean it's very and I share with you the concern that it is women alone. I mean, either she could be an old lady or a woman who is in a very deplorable condition, or suffering certain kind of disability. Yeah, I mean a chronic one that has been with her for a long time, and people attribute the source of that to witchcraft. In other words, what happens is that then the society even ceases to have any sympathy, for such people. So it's a very disturbing case. Like in Ghana's case, where I don't know. Just this afternoon, I tried to go on the net to find out a bit about other places, and the report I got is that it's only in Ghana that you have a camp. I mean, where they are kept, either for their own security, as a kind of ostracism or banishment, and so on and so forth. And once they've been isolated, and there's a certain negative response to it, then that's where the issue of their human rights, it comes in, and there's no sympathy at all. I mean, for them, there's no respect. They are derided, debased in society, and so on and so forth. But channeling, I mean, this kind of, if like, energy, force, power, I would have wished that it was possible in Africa here or in any part of the world. The concern or the response comes because it is seen as a source of fear. Because the belief is that it affects you in a manner that you don't see with your eye, but that it eats you up inside you.
Sheikh, let me come in again.
Right.
You see, with all the mysticisms that surround witchcraft, for the reason why we've taken them from home to this camp, if they've stayed there for 20 years and over and they haven't escaped or done any charm, I mean, is that not a proof that they haven't got
they are powerless?
Any powerless?
Let me correct it. They are not in camps, actually. That is a misnomer, because we have done some investigation. Our investigation revealed that given their rather vulnerable states, because they become so vulnerable to the rest of society, because they feel that these are people who ordinarily are not supposed to live within community. So they rather find safe haven within the chief's palace. So they are settlements. So those are safe havens. So we've really been kicking against this tag that they are camps. They are settlements, and wherever they are, they have access to almost everything. They see within that settlement, under the more or less the leadership of the Gambagana, as a safe haven, because of that labeling, they don't find themselves safe enough to live in their normal communities. So that is the context in which normally they are told as being in camps, but they are in the settlements. They are not walled. They have access. They have freedom to move.
But everybody within that settlement is deemed to be
in a camp.
Okay, we have. I think our insert is ready now, so let's watch it and then continue exercising our witches.
Apogbiri was accused of striking Ladi's daughter with a spiritual illness, making her unable to practice her profession as a nurse. She was accused of causing Ladi's son's joblessness. The old woman allegedly confessed at the house of the second fetish priest at Kalbiu, a suburb of Bolgatanga. So Joy News traced the house of the fetish priest to ascertain the truth about the alleged confession she made. However, after her alleged confession, she was brought back to the Zobisi community where the fetish priest had earlier made her confess for more rituals to be performed. When Joy News arrived, the old woman had been isolated from the rest of the people gathered at the house of the fetish priest. She was crying and asking the people around her why she was still being held when she had already confessed. Not even pleas from other women who had gathered would console her. Later, the two fetish priests, together with their assistants and some community leaders, poured libation and made her confess again before everybody for those who missed her earlier confession to hear her.
You already asked me and I told you that I bewitched the children, but I have freed them now. I kept their spirits in 2 bowls, the boy in a clay bowl and the girl in a silver bowl. I brought the bowls to you and you freed them. You even poured libations and killed fowls in order to free their spirits. Why then are you still keeping me here against my will and maltreating me to the extent of tearing off my clothes?
But Abelzirma, the young lady whose illness has been blamed on the alleged witch, says she was not feeling any better after the confession.
Till this morning, the stomach is still paining me and my throat. I can't even take anything. When I take water, I bring it out.
You see, some of these stories are very sad.
Yes.
You see, I have this belief that, whatever it is that you believe in would work for you. And so far as you channel your energies in this direction, it will work for you. And maybe we need to find a way of channeling our energies positively. And, you might be a Christian. And so I'm sure if you slept and had a vision, you're more likely to see Christ.
Yeah.
If Sheikh had a vision, he's more likely to see Muhammad. And if I was a traditional ruler and I slept, I'm more likely to see
An ancestor.
an ancestor. You see, because we're all channeling our energies that way. But maybe too many of us are channeling our energies.
So
See,
it means that
like I said, it is because of the notion of evil that we associate with it. So in some areas where like in the UK and other places where they are not seen as objects of fear, but because probably they channel those energies or those forces and powers, in a very constructive manner. So they are not a source of worry. They don't target the survival of a whole nation, a whole community, individuals. So if a research, for example, is conducted in a way as to be sympathetical or empathetically involved, actually to see. It's a very very slippery area in the study of our religions at the university. There's something we call the phenomenology of religion, where if you engage in that research, you bracket all your prejudices, and then you want to see things as they are and not as they ought to be. So, and that is where most researchers, and because there is also a certain kind of dislike, so researchers even don't
want to go into that area,
because you must get involved in order to have an experience of what it means, so that when you are writing. So, but researchers have done, like Evans Pritchard and the rest, who have done a lot of research, a lot of books have been written. So, if we all say it like the Western world and the scientific world, where empiricism is used as a basis to be able to research and come out with revelations that have helped in modern day technology, for example. Our case, we do not go into that area. We are so spiritual that anything that we fail to understand, we derive its meaning into the mystic, into the mystical, and so we are held up. But I think that I will agree with you that if we research into it and such powers as are used to destroy can rather be turned so that they cease to be objects of fear. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is why in Africa or in Ghana here, once they say this one way anyang,
you're doomed.
I mean, you and the woman has made a confession. Of course, I mean that is the way it begins. In some cases, a confession is made. In some cases, somebody who has the eye to see or acquired the ability, identifies and says that this has that. But my worry is, even when we identify the person, there are people who have confessed and they have seen that thing as a source of worry to themselves. And they want that thing to be taken away from them. Now, such persons, you need to handle them with sympathy and dignity and assist them get relief from that which bothers them, destroys them inside, and find a channel through which such a powerful thing can be made beneficial to society rather than destroy people.
Let me take a break now, and then I'll come back. And we have 12 psychiatrists nationwide looking after 25 million people. I mean, how many of these women have we been diagnosed to find out if she's going through a depression or psychosis, or indeed she has got these powers which she's channeling negatively? Stay tuned, we're coming straight back. Okay, we're talking about modern day witchcraft and the stigmas and everything about it. And the date is 2013, if you haven't checked your calendar. This topic should have been discussed in 14 something or 12, 13, but no, it's 2013 and we're still discussing on prime time TV, which means it's still a problem. But I want to find out from Isaac Annan, who's a deputy director of Chirac, why witches happen to only live in developing countries and in poor areas. I mean, you never find witches in Cantonment or Times Square or stuff like that. They're always in a village somewhere, in a dingy... But these are people who had mystical powers who to charm money and move into Trasaco. So, I mean, David,
yes,
Isaac,
brings to fore the issue. These are symptoms of a more fundamental structural problem that we have in our society. I support it in developed communities, so-called developed and enhanced in terms of economic and social progress in terms communities. They don't have this problem. What we are saying that from a purely human point of view, the states of Ghana has ratified treaties, which treaties are expected to guarantee the basic necessities or minimum essentials for the livelihoods or well-being of everybody. So it's not by accident that you find this phenomenon in very deprived communities. And research has shown that the northern part of Ghana, and especially northern regions and the rest, are poverty-stricken countries. So where people find themselves in that context, that is one of the reasons we, from a human right, when you are denying these basic, access to basic services or needs or amenities, your educational needs, health, housing, and the barest minimum to survive as a human being. This is certain. So people fall prey because of this deprivation. Look, where we are all copying from all these democracies that we're talking about, that's what we have the safe havens for, or the safety net for people who find themselves in these communities. Where, like you say, where are witches in London? Or where can you find them? Does it mean it's only developed, or Ghana, that is so more or less, having a problem in terms of who should be seen as a witch? Mm-hmm. Basically, this phenomenon that we are talking about has its own social origin and foundation. And where the state of Ghana, which has a responsibility to provide for this, basic needs, find it maybe for obvious reasons, the argument being that there's not enough. But in those communities where we are, or the society where we are more or less emulating or trying to, propel ourselves to, they find the minimum for these people to exist as, human beings. Mm-hmm. Coming back to the issue of confession that we're talking about.
Yeah.
You see, almost, I don't know whether I got it right, but we tend to believe but that is the spiritual realm. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
That the confession that came out from the old lady and others who, for one reason or not, are deemed to possess this evil spirit, the confessions are normally exacted from their own free will. There's another contest, but I don't want to enter into it. We know how these things work out. You go to the fetish priest, and they say, okay, this is the allegation. We suspect you to be a witch. Confess all. So they go through the trial by ordeal, which is illegal. We have accepted, like, once again, I'm trying to balance tradition, culture, with what we have now signed on: due process, constitutionalism, rule of law. So nobody has the right to ask somebody to come and confess. You know, even if you are deemed to have committed a crime, you are brought through the normal process of trial. You are given a hearing. You have every right to a counsel or somebody to guide you. But this person finds himself in this community, he's already tagged as a evil being, as Sheikh is saying. So that confession that was exacted, we must look at the circumstances. The young lady is saying that even after the confession that I have now more or less, the way she used the word, that she has more or less exorcised or purified it, but she's still not well.
I mean, she's still
having a problem.
I have on the phone ASP Irene Opon, who is the National PR officer for DOVSU.
Okay.
Hello, Irene.
Hello.
Well, Irene, I mean, there's a lady in my community, and my children are suffering from chicken pox. I healed them in the chicken pox, and Hello, Irene, can you hear me?
I can hardly hear you.
Oh, let me speak up a bit and see if it's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I've come to DOVSU to report a lady that lives in my community who I suspect to be a witch, because my children keep getting ill, and she's come up to...
Who you suspect that?
I suspect a woman in my community is a witch, because my kids are getting ill, and she's come out to say, look, she's the one that's making my children get ill. So I want you to go and arrest her because she's a witch. I mean, so what do you do at DOVSU?
Or the police.
Thank you very much.
Or as a police. I mean, you need to arrest her because, you know, my children are getting sick, and anytime they get better, they get sick again. And, you know, she's come out to confess that I'm the one making the children ill.
Okay, thank you very much. The issue is that police, we need evidence to prosecute. And what you are saying is a hearsay. Secondly, if the person comes out to confess that she is making them sick, through which means can we prove that really she is the suspect who is making the children sick? So once we don't have that evidence, it will be difficult to prosecute that person for that crime.
Well, so then how do we justify these communities then? Because people have moved into communities, and clearly they are there because they are perceived to be witches. I mean, so how do we bring them back into their communities? Because if they're living there legally, because the only proof is that they once upon a time confessed, or living there because of that suspicion.
You see, if you accuse somebody wrongly of being a witch, that is an offense which can be captured under the Domestic Violence Act 2007 at 732. And it says that any act where, let me quote it for you. He says that domestic violence means engaging in the following within the context of a previous or existing relationship, where a person is emotionally, verbally, or psychologically abused, namely any conduct that makes another person feel constantly unhappy, miserable, humiliated, ridiculed, afraid, cheated, or depressed, or to feel inadequate or worthless. And therefore, if you accuse somebody wrongly of being a witch, the unit can capture it under this act, and you will be charged for that offense, either verbal either verbal, emotional, or psychological abuse. And the prison term is 2 years. But the other aspect too is that, yes, one may ask, why is it that you have this act and still there are witch camps and people are still being accused of being witches, and what is the unit doing about it? The first explanation is that issues of this kind, apart from those that are sent to the camps, happens in the domestic setting, and we need information to move. And where we had the information like this, we move to rescue them. Others at church camps, those who are locked in rooms, we move in. And in that instances, you can even add another charges like assault by imprisonment to it, apart from the psychological abuse, which is in the criminal code. But when we don't get the information, that makes it difficult. I remember we once handled a case. It was around Sukura. We had the information. We liaised with the Suma police, and the late Siateteria was leading the team. We went and rescued the lady from Sukura area, and she was sent to the psychiatric hospital, and she was well. But
let me come in here. You see, how do you deal with it when the whole community suspects an individual of being a witch? It's easy if I'm the only suspect, but when the whole community...
Yes, it's sensitization. Talking about the camps where people are being kept of being witch and the whole community supports that idea. We need to sensitize them, and in that area, it wouldn't be the work of Dofsu alone. All other partners have to come on board. We need other partners like social welfare, and then the National Commission on Education, for us to sensitize the people to know that the act is criminal. It has emotional and psychological aspect that affects the victim who is being. We cannot just go in, you go to a camp, and then you go to a community, you arrest everybody there who has accused somebody of being a witch. Our problem is that if we move in that way, we need to rescue them from the homes and send them to a shelter. A shelter is a problem that Dofsu is facing, and we don't have our own shelter, and social welfare is also not having. So it's a gradual process. We need to sensitize them for them to understand the impact of what they are doing. Then we can get somewhere.
How about girl-child education? Because there's no way you go and catch a nurse and put her in any home and accuse her of being a witch, even if she was a witch indeed. You so far as she's been educated and has become a nurse or like a police officer, ASP like you, there's no way anybody can approach you to say they put you in a camp. So maybe girl-child education would be one way of reducing it. I don't know. You are the expert.
The girl-child education.
Yes, hello? If we promote girl-child education where every woman was educated, a nurse, a teacher, a minister, a judge, there's no way you go and arrest her or suspect her of being a witch. If she was educated.
Well, even though when it comes to issues like this, women are in the majority, the interest of Dofsu actually, when it comes to children, is both sexes, the boy and the girl. We have had instances that boys as well, children, boys who are staying with stepmothers have also been accused of being a witch. You understand? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to education, with our school outreach programs, the girls are not the targets. We don't target only the girls. We target
on this subject, what's the way forward for Dofsu?
The way forward for Dofsu is education. And we have it in place. One may think that issues like this happens only in the villages. It will surprise you that in this modern era in Accra, we have cases like that. which are also being investigated. So education, those health outreach programs that will go to schools, communities, Norris stations, sensitize people about the Domestic Violence Act. Even though the act has been in existence for about 6 years, it's still new to people. The content, they are not aware. So we are implementing it, and we are also making sure that we make sure people understand the content, the criminalities, what protection, like the protection order, occupation order, that one can file to get his or her freedom from domestic violence. We are doing all that. And therefore, I will use your medium to appeal to organizations who are interested in inviting the unit to come and sensitize their members. Some churches bring letters. Other NGOs also collaborate with us to go to the villages to sensitize people on this. And the other side is that we want people to know that it's a criminal aspect. Formerly, when cases of this nature were reported, we were using the criminal code, and it was a misconduct. That was a misdemeanor. But now it's 2 years imprisonment or 6,000 Ghana cedi for psychological abuse, and it has been captured. So if you do anything of that nature and it's reported, we establish that, yes, there is evidence in the report, you could be imprisoned for 2 years.
Thank you very much, Irene. Irene, thanks. But let me come to Chirag. I mean, my question to you again. If Article 38 in the Constitution said we should put everybody through school, and I'm sure if every person has a reasonable level of education, it automatically would reduce this.
I think education has been seen or is seen as the opener for us, every person, to assess his or her rights. That's why the right to education is very, very fundamental, especially basic education. That's why from a human right perspective, everybody has a right to basic education, what we call the FQ. So a certain level, like you're talking about nurses, why is that me and you? How dare you come and call me a witch? Or nobody would dare. Then I go back to the issue of the responsibility of the states to make sure that the minimum of basic services are provided. So in these communities where you have education, where people go about their duties, they are their livelihoods, they have access to all the facilities, the minimum. They are not asking for anything very, very, big, but modest, so that they can go about their activities without hindrance. And this is a human rights, imperative. So this part of the country, this where people are vulnerable, we as Ghanaians and as, very enlightened people, we must see it's not a favor for a politician to build a school for us to clap for the politician. It's our right to demand it. And where we see that the community is deprived in terms, will you allow your mother to be subjected to that torture? And from what Aaron is saying, you see that the law even protects the victim. I think your question was going to the direction of what happens to the person who has confessed. The law has no business for those who are claiming to have the magic to label somebody a witch. The law is progressive and say that this kind of thinking does not make our society grow. So going forward, we must now demand as a society, and I think church as a national human rights institution also has a role, because we've taken on this before, the Gambaga thing. We went and investigated it. We made sure that from time to time we monitor the situation to see that these people get the basic protection. Their rights are not abused. You see, when you look at the context, you look that maybe people are come somewhere, but for their own safety, they need to be within a certain context. Until the state intervenes and gives them shelter, like Irene is saying, and give them access to, education, those of them who are very young and can go to school, and those who don't have the means to survive economically, they have access to some
Let me come
basic
to
resources.
Sheikh, I'm not too conversant with Islam, but
Right.
with Christianity, most pastors have capitalized on it. I mean, they will sit on the radio station and within one phone call declare your mother a witch, declare your great-grandmother a witch, and, declare everybody in your family a witch. And then the next phone call comes and again, the whole family is a witch. And as soon as the word witch is mentioned, all hell breaks loose. So in Christianity, we've capitalized on it and constantly exorcising witches on a treadmill, literally coming in and being exorcised. And so maybe in Christianity, we are not helping the matter.
As I listened to the ACP, what I thought, apart from what we are saying, suggesting to government, like to provide basic amenities, like education that helps to liberate the mind, and so on. But the surprising thing is, among well-educated people, you find people who have a fear for witchcraft, and they have a strong belief in it. These are well-placed people. And some of them have experienced certain things, and they attribute it to. So I think that the thing begins from the state of the mind. We are here because it is not part of our thinking. Even when we dream. Let me give you a story. One day, a sister, one morning called me, and said, "Are you driving?" I said, "No. Please today, don't come out with that car." I dreamt and what I saw was not good. So many things. So I smiled. I smiled. So, all right, I've heard. We'll say some prayer on it. We'll say some prayer. I didn't rubbish it completely, but I told her. But I didn't have that inkling in me that something like this could happen to me, because I have a strong also belief that I'm well fortified. Yeah, I'm positive. So it's the positive energies that come my way, not the negative ones. So I drove the car out actually, and nothing has happened to me because of how I think. So what probably we need to do within the religious domains is to assist people to think positively, to liberate them. In fact, that is the essence of religion, liberating the human mind from spiritual entanglement, that you can survive in dignity as you move along. That is all the teachings will give you. It give you inner confidence, a sense of harmony inside you.
But Sheikh, is the fear not that if I liberate this guy, then he's not going to rely on me anymore, and I need him to rely on me so that he can drop a penny or two in the box?
That becomes deception. That becomes deception, and that is an exploitative aspect of religion. And really, when Mbiti said that the African particularly is incurably religious, and that is why the Africans sometimes can be misled. If you're not well guided, even what you believe in, you can be misled. And people can use religion as a means to exploit people. And we see it. It happens even among Muslims also. It's not only the Christians. Of late, you see on the television, people are parading. Muslims, who come from the Muslim side, and they say so many things. Yeah, and it's becoming an emergent phenomenon. It's an emerging. In those days, Malams didn't come on television to advertise themselves, but they look at how the pastors are raking, fleecing and getting prominence. They also thought that, look, we also have something to share, so let's also bring it out. But that religion is supposed to help people, to liberate people.
Let me go to Isaac before we run. Isaac, are we not? Maybe we haven't prosecuted a case for everybody to know that this guy is doing 2 years and 6,000 because he or she said that this person was a witch, and there he goes. So
is the sensitization, as Aaron said, because people, like, these are beliefs. So we given my level of education, and purely because coming from a human rights angle, I know that this is not tenable in our society, given all the guarantees and the protection that we have. So as we do more sensitization, like you're saying with National Commission on Civic Education, for instance, what we have done in the Gambaga, situation is that we have a regular committee which more or less monitor the situation, which is a joint work that we're doing with key stakeholders, Sinead and others. So they monitor and they do this kind of sensitization. If you look at how we went about Trokoshi, I think you heard about Trokoshi, because these are very innate cultural, faith-based practices. You cannot eradicate it within a matter of days or whatever. So we need sensitization. And if people get sensitized and tell them that, oh, when these things happen, this can never be countenanced in the society that we have now. So come to church, go to the courts, and when people don't complain, the police says that no complainant, no case. Is that not it? In the same way, if there's no complainant before church, as the law stands now, we cannot take up any prosecution or any investigation of a matter. So the only admonition is that we who are enlightened, if my mother is subjected to such, or my sister, or my brother, to such, inhuman and degrading treatment, which is guaranteed, the Constitution guarantees that you can't subject me to torture or any form of degrading treatment. At my level, I should be able to assess the court or assess remedy within the prison of the church, system. But what about those in those communities? Even are they empowered? And that is where we are talking about education and enlightenment.
To even know that they have the right.
And this is what we continuously do as a human rights institution, because we create awareness. But the awareness now must be focused. So
the movies that the Ghanaians make, and the children are growing up with these movies, so they we're not even helping them from all angles.
Yeah, I think when I see this movie, because like Sheikh said, we are even reinforcing, because people have problems, and so then you see some witch or some supernatural power intervening. So increasingly we are now letting the children to understand that some of these things are realities in life. Though they are realities, shouldn't they have a critical mind, inquiry mind, to know that there are scientific processes or scientific situations would lead to certain phenomena arising in society? But I agree with you. It's part of the, indoctrination that is going on. But now you have to get the regulators. In these days of maybe freedoms, we don't know the extent to which maybe a censorship can go to. But somebody will tell you that, it's part of our culture.
Yep.
Why are you censoring? And this, I want to make my money. So now we have that delicate balance which we must strike and see whether any practice, belief, tradition which impedes our progress, the Constitution is clear there. We should be able to just make sure that we do away with it. And I think, as we are saying, maybe we can take the debate or the education to that level and say that when it comes to, because these are mediums for, shaping people, education.
Lives.
It's a whole medium for doing propaganda, indoctrinating people. And if you don't get it right from that angle, I am very happy that I've brought this up. Look at the things we watch. And people think that this is the way it should go. But that's an issue we can take on another forum.
Because if you watch the movie like that, and you turn on the radio, and then the pastor was also saying that, it just goes to confirm that.
But Sheikh is saying, who is that pastor? Because like you are saying, and that is where sometimes people tend to say that religion, giving who is wielding that power to profess that religion, he uses it as an opium. I don't know whether opium
of the man.
Because you know what how opium operates. So that he doesn't liberate you, but rather makes you to be sedated, and you can just imbibe all everything out. But me and you must use religion, our faith, to let society progress and to liberate others who find themselves what do I say? It's bondage, more or less.
Sheikh, we've run out of time, but aren't we even afraid to get in a realm where to believe that I am free from these things? I think we've gotten to the stage where even if you went to tell someone that, look, you are free, you have a positive inner energy, it's like, no, yeah. I'm not. I'm somehow under attack all the time. We've locked ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's why my point is that even within religion, in the mosque and in the church, we should start from the mind. I mean, where people should be educated to begin to accept that they themselves have certain inner strength to be able to survive positively in a very dignified manner, that they have something inside them that is a reflection of the beautiful attributes of God, that the God that has the power to be able to sustain the world has given them certain power with which they will be able, even where there is the spirit world, where there are the evil forces that come to us, the belief in God should be able to repel that particular thing, so that we don't isolate certain people and stigmatize them, subject them to certain emotional torture by which we abuse their right, and so on. Even from within context of religion, where such people have been identified, how do I use the religion as somebody who represent to liberate and bring solace and peace and comfort to such a person, and through my prayer, in a very dignified manner, bringing relief to that person, rather than still perpetuating that mindset that stigmatizes that person and subject the person to pain. And I think we have reached, I agree with you, we have reached a stage where we should not be propagating that. I would wish that those who do the films, if that is, they want to portray what we believe in, because truly speaking, in the whole of Africa, there's a belief in witchcraft.
Yeah.
Go to Ghana, go to Nigeria, go to Kenya, go to Zanzibar. I mean, wherever. Just recently, I was told, is it in Haiti or somewhere where the witches were being told not to fly within certain, because they were causing aircraft to crash. So if even the state level, where the state is issuing and dialoguing and negotiating with the witches.
But the question you pose, why is that we have the confidence as Ghanaians of late to challenge our leaders politically? You pose the question, why can't we, in the same vein, challenge some of these negative practices? Because that is the dilemma now. You say that it's a very enlightened society when it comes to politics or political matters. The uninitiated can even mount a platform and pose questions, critique policies that one way may not even have ideas. But when it comes to this traditional matters, we don't go there.
I mean, there's fear.
just to round up, in my hometown, Akwemwedu, I'm having a little stroll around the land, and I see a big timber on the floor. So I said, and it looked like it'd been sawed down. I said, there's a pastor who's moved into town, and he says there was a witch on it. I didn't see anything. So we move 10 meters down, there's another tree, also locked down. So I asked again, why this tree? Apparently, when they chopped the tree down, the witch flew from that tree to this tree. I said, this guy is going to chop down every tree in the village in a minute. So anyway, I sent for him, but he wasn't there, and I left a message to say that I won his license from forestry on my land, giving him permission to chop my tree. Indeed, it's my land, my tree, and my witch. Who are you to come and chop it down? But it's all about belief, because just as you stand in Arlington Cemetery and be proud to post that you're standing behind giants that were buried, you won't go to Awudome Cemetery, because automatically your thinking changes. It's been PM Express. The topic was exercising witches. You are already exercised. My name is Nanan Sakwa. Tomorrow we're back here to do it all over again. Thanks for watching.